A friend of mine, let's call him Dev, texted me a screenshot last year that I still think about. It was his bank statement from the end of October. Household income for the month, just over $11,000 after tax. Balance remaining on November 1st, $114. $114. That's not a savings number. That's a pray nothing breaks this week number. And the wildest part, Dev isn't struggling in the way most people picture struggling. He's a software developer. His wife runs operations at a logistics company. Combined, they earn about $140,000 a year. They don't gamble. They don't have a shopping addiction. They don't take fancy trips. They go to work, come home, take care of their daughter, and try to keep the wheels on. And somehow, $114. When he sent me that screenshot, he wrote one line underneath it. Bro, are we doing something wrong or is the game rigged? That question haunted me, so I spent months looking into it. And what I found is something that I think every working household in this country needs to hear. Because the answer to Dev's question, it's both. There are things you can control, but there's also a machine working against you that most people don't even know exists. Hi, I'm Major, and if you've ever looked at your bank account and wondered how you're making good money but still feel broke, this video is for you. Today, we're breaking down exactly why that happens and how to finally take back control. Here's something that doesn't make sense until you really think about it. In 1975, the average American household had one full-time earner. Today, the average household has 1.5 to 2 earners. So in theory, families should have way more money than they did 50 years ago, but they don't. When you adjust for inflation, the median family today has less money left over at the end of the month than a single earner family in the mid-70s. That's not a typo. More people working, more hours worked, more combined salary, and less to show for it. Think of it like a treadmill. You used to walk at 3 miles an hour and the belt moved at 2. You were making progress, slow but real. Now you're sprinting at 8 miles an hour, but the belt is moving at 7.5. You're working harder than your parents ever did and barely inching forward. The question is, who turned up the speed on the belt? And the answer is a handful of industries that figured out something very clever. When families went from 1 income to 2, they didn't just have more money, they had more borrowing power. And that's the piece that changed everything. Let's start with housing, because that's where the biggest chunk of everyone's money goes. In the 70s, home prices were roughly 2 to 3 times a household's annual income. Today, in many markets, it's 5 to 8 times. And the reason isn't just they stopped building enough houses, even though that's part of it. The deeper reason is that when every family suddenly had 2 incomes, every family could qualify for a bigger mortgage. And when every family qualifies for more, they all bid higher. And when everyone bids higher, prices rise until the new normal absorbs both incomes. It's an auction where the floor keeps rising because everyone in the room got a raise at the same time. The same thing happened with college tuition. When more money was available, through loans, through dual income families willing to pay, universities raised prices to match. Healthcare, same story. Childcare, absolutely the same story. These aren't luxury purchases you can skip. You need somewhere to live. Your kid needs to be somewhere while you work. You need a doctor when you're sick. These are non-negotiable costs, and they've all been repriced for a 2-income world. Which means if you're a 2-income family, you're not ahead. You're just keeping up. And if you're a single-income family, you might be falling behind through no fault of your own. Now here's where it gets personal. Because beyond the big structural stuff, housing, healthcare, childcare, there's a second layer of spending that nobody budgets for and almost nobody tracks. I call it the busy tax. When Dev's wife gets off work at 5:30 and picks up their daughter from daycare at 6, she walks in the door at 6:20 with a tired toddler and zero desire to stand in front of a stove. So they order food. Not every night, but 3, maybe 4 nights a week. At $35 to $50 an order, that's $600 a month on meals they wouldn't be buying if someone were home cooking. Then there's the laundry service because weekends are already packed. The house cleaner because the house is a disaster and it's affecting their mental health. The grocery delivery with its markups and service fees because who has time to walk the aisles and compare prices? The impulse purchases on Amazon at 11 p.m. because scrolling your phone is the only me time either of you gets. None of these feel like big expenses in the moment, but the busy tax in a typical dual income household can run anywhere from $800 to $1,500 a month. That's $10,000 to $18,000 a year on the cost of being too drained to manage your own life. And it creates this vicious cycle. You work to earn money, working makes you exhausted. Being exhausted makes you spend money. Spending money means you need to keep working, round and round and round. And at the end of the month, $114. But here's what actually keeps me up at night about all of this. It's not that families are spending all their money, it's that they're doing it on a tightrope with no net. When your life is calibrated to 2 full salaries, you're operating at maximum capacity all the time. There's no slack. It's like revving an engine at redline and calling it normal driving. Dev told me, and this stuck with me, he said, "I can't get sick." Literally, I cannot afford to miss more than a week of work. And he's not talking about some part-time gig with no benefits. He has a salaried position at a tech company. But the margins are so thin that a bad month, a car repair, a medical bill, an unexpected expense sends the whole thing wobbling. And what happens when someone actually does get laid off? Or when a parent needs to step back for a new baby? Or when there's a recession and one of you takes a pay cut? The bills don't adjust. The mortgage is the same. The car loan is the same. Daycare is the same. But you're now trying to cover it all on half the fuel. This is why families that earn 6 figures are filing for bankruptcy at rates that would shock you. It's not recklessness, it's architecture. They built their life inside a structure that can't survive a single crack in the foundation. Alright, so what do you actually do about this? Because understanding the trap is step 1, but understanding alone doesn't lower your rent. The approach that I've seen work and that Dev eventually adopted, I think of as building on one leg. The idea is simple but uncomfortable. You take the lower of your 2 incomes and you build your entire life inside that number. Rent or mortgage, groceries, utilities, transportation, insurance. All of it has to fit inside one salary. The second income, that becomes your future. Emergency fund first, 3 to 6 months of expenses, then investments, then accelerated debt payoff. It stops being survival money and starts being freedom money. Now, 4 practical things you can do starting this week. 1. Audit the second income honestly. Get a piece of paper, write the gross salary at the top, then subtract every cost that only exists because that person works. Taxes on that income, childcare, commuting, work clothes, the busy tax. Whatever number is left at the bottom, that's the real number, and it will change how you see everything. 2. Set a housing ceiling before you shop. Don't let a bank tell you what you can afford. Decide for yourself based on one income. If the lower earner makes $4,500 a month after tax, your total housing cost should not exceed $1,350. That might mean a smaller place, a longer commute, a less trendy zip code. That's the trade, and it's worth it. 3. Track the busy tax for 30 days. Every time you spend money because you're tired, rushed, or guilty, mark it. Don't judge it yet, just track it. At the end of the month, look at that total. Then decide which of those expenses are genuinely worth it and which ones are just the treadmill extracting more from you. 4. Have the uncomfortable conversation with your partner. Not about blame, not about who spends more, about what your life would look like if it didn't require both of you running at full speed to stay in place. What would you change? What would you keep? That conversation alone is more valuable than any budget spreadsheet. I called Dev a few weeks ago. It's been about a year since that $114 screenshot. They didn't move. They didn't take pay cuts. They didn't do anything dramatic. They just stopped building their life around 2 salaries. They renegotiated the daycare situation. His mother-in-law comes 3 days a week now. They meal prep on Sundays. They kept the old car instead of upgrading. Small stuff, boring stuff. But at the end of last month, their savings account had over $14,000 in it. First time in their adult lives they've had a real cushion. And Dev told me something I won't forget. He said, "I sleep differently now, like actually sleep. I didn't realize how much of my insomnia was just money stress sitting on my chest." $140,000 a year and he couldn't sleep. That tells you everything you need to know about how this trap works. So if any of this sounds like your life, if you're earning good money and feeling broke anyway, just know it's not you. The math was stacked before you even sat down at the table, but now you can see it. And once you see it, you can build around it. If this hits you, subscribe. We break down the financial traps that nobody talks about, and more importantly, how to actually get out of them. Drop a comment and tell me, what's your biggest expense that you didn't see coming? I read every one. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay superior.